Hello and welcome to EMC TV. Calvin Smith here, joined now by Vic Bhagat, CIO of EMC Corporation, and John Roese, CTO of EMC Corporation. Vic, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Delighted to be here, Calvin.
John, always a pleasure to speak with you outside of the day work. So Vic, I want to start off over here and ask you a little bit, what are these COEs, these global centers of excellence across EMC?
Yeah, great question. And I think, the way I would define the COEs right now is we have an incredible talent pool of global brains that exists across the globe for EMC to leverage, right? We have COEs, we have 3 COEs that exist in China, in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Chengdu. We have 1 in Bangalore, India. We have 1 in Ireland, Cork. We have 2 in Russia, 1 in St. Petersburg, 1 in Moscow. We have an incredible COE that is set up in Israel. We have Herzliya. We have Beersheba, and we have 2 COEs, where people actually don't even know that actually exist in the US. That's right. 1 in Durham, and the newly added Utah COE. So overall, an incredible fabric of global brains that's available. This is what the COEs are made up
Absolutely. And we'd be remiss to forget Cairo too.
And of course.
The problem is they're continually expanding.
They are, and trying to keep track of all of them, should be my job, but thank you for letting me know
I know you've got a couple other things
yeah.
Going on as well. John, I want to spiral over to you. So I think that there's been some great interaction and involvement between the CIO office and the CTO office historically, and certainly we have a great vision moving forward, a coupled vision, right? One of the programs where we've been able to interact a lot is through the innovation roadmap. So we had 4,429 ideas submitted this year against 28 different challenges, and about 75% of all the ideas submitted came from the COEs. Phenomenal news. Wondering if you give just a brief snapshot. Your thoughts on the program. What does that look like?
Well, the purpose of the Innovation Challenge is to, throw it open to the entire audience of EMC. EMC has 60,000 people at the federation level. Every one of them has a point of view, has insight, and they're spread across the world. And what we've learned is when you throw those innovation challenges out beyond just the core R&D organization, you start getting interesting answers. And the fact that we're getting, 70% of the ideas around these new innovation challenges coming from our global COE footprint tells us that we're actually thinking globally, we're bringing alternative points of view, and what's more important is that the way the Innovation Challenge works is it's not just a solicitation of ideas. There's a process in which we actually cull them, select them, map them into tangible problems that we're trying to solve, and then fund them and try to actually turn them into reality. And so the consequence of that is that the actual execution of innovation is now happening on a global scale. It's not just happening out of the R&D product lines, it's happening in the COEs, it's happening in the international regions, it's happening across the entire company. And so I think it's actually a very good indication of a company that's transforming from being kind of a local company to being a global company.
That's right. Wonderful, wonderful summary there. And also the ideas came from 28 different countries this year, right? So the COEs spanned 7 different countries, but 28 different countries. We had ideas coming in from countries I didn't realize we had operations in. So that's pretty neat. When you see that happen, they're getting the corporate messaging, but at the same time, it's just all interwoven, and we kind of get into this decentralized model, which can be very effective.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about that is, in my experience, I've had the privilege of working in, let's call it, global international companies, as has Vic, and what I think both GE and the companies I've worked at have seen is the way people think about innovation is different depending on where you originate. And one of the most interesting things that's happening today in the industry is this concept of reverse innovation or inverse innovation or Jugat innovation. And all of these, Jugat, it's actually the innovation coming out of the developing markets. And it's actually good books on the topic. Yeah. But the bottom line is, when you think about solving a problem, when you're constrained by different dimensions, for instance, you're trying to solve a communication problem in a market that doesn't have robust telecommunication infrastructure, you think differently about the problem. The result of that is that you might come up with a more cost-effective, a much more innovative, a much more efficient way to actually deliver that technology. What happens, though, is that in almost all cases when you come up with this new way of thinking about solving a problem, is it probably will translate into a new way of solving the problem in developed markets. And we're seeing more and more of this kind of flow of innovative ideas come not just from the developed markets to the developing markets, but actually coming out of the developing world and actually solving existing problems in new ways at different economics, a different scale, a different simplicity than we ever would have solved if we only thought about it from that one perspective. So 28 companies is absolutely a great, or 28 countries is a great thing to see in terms of where the innovation ideas come from and the points of view and how it flows back and forth across developed versus developing.
Right. And The real trick is going to be the flexibility that a global company shows, and with the speed with which it can address a local need.
That's
right? That's what's going to make it competitive. You know, those days of one size fits all really is not relevant anymore, right? How do we become sensitive? How do we become aware of what the local needs are? And that's why you'll see, you know, the 28 countries now may go to 56 next year.
We hope so. We hope so.
Right?
We certainly hope so. You're absolutely right.